Hello, everyone. It's Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo along with Ben Lesnick for another Batgirl and Ben. Well, it's 5 for Ben. Well, Ben, what are we going to call this in the future?
I don't know. Maybe in the future we don't need labels.
I don't know. Well, we don't need label. People keep on labeling me, and I'm getting a little bit annoyed with what they're saying. You should read my last couple of Bensdays, what people are saying about me. It's starting to piss me off.
Just there's always going to be trolls and terrible people out there.
2942, you think the idea of being transgender would have been okay already, you know?
There's more good people than bad out there.
I know there's far more good people. And the only reason I get upset is because people that are good wind up fighting a battle I don't want to fight. I just want people to go away. GTFO. So let's get into like the more pertinent things that are going on. So another wave of ships are coming.
Yes, that is correct.
And you're not giving us any idea what these things are.
No, I'm not. I think people have figured out most of them at this point. My list right now. We've got six. We've got six in the hopper, aiming for one every month or so.
About a month. And these are going to be ships that are going to be in the concept stage. So, how would you say we're
That's
doing?
A beautiful cat, by the way.
What?
The cat in back of you was climbing on a computer. And it's,
that is Batcat, and ever since being fixed, she's much better. So she's doing good.
Way.
So in the past, and I've been, almost sounded like a dog was barking. In the past, I've been one of the earliest people to start adopting ships as you come in. I mean, there's a lot of us, right? There's many of us that do. And some of those ships we've purchased, we still haven't seen, like the Bounty Merchantman and the 890 Jump, which look at me, 890 Jump, will that ever come up for sale again in the near future, I hope?
Not the near future. We will bring it back at some point. I think it's the only ship we haven't sold a second time.
Okay.
In fact, I'm just getting out of a ships meeting. We had a little brainstorm for future ships here, and somehow it ended with Justin coming in and everyone explaining to him what the 890 Jump was.
All right. So the reason I'm making this question so long is that there's some of these concept sales which we threw our money at. Sometimes $650, like for the 890 Jump, and we still haven't seen them. Now that the pipeline seems to be more or less in place, are we going to see the times greatly reduced from concept to when we start to see these things appear in the hangar?
Yes and no. Yes, the lead time will be much less, especially for ships that are concepted now. The biggest problem is just resources. It's getting the CryEngine experience to people, the tech designers, the actual engineers who bring the ship into the game and make all the bits and pieces work. We have plenty of them. I mean, I'm sure we have. I think we employ more of them than anyone in the industry now, but they're all working on Squadron 42. So Squadron 42 being done is going to be a huge windfall for ship production for Star Citizen, because I've got 20 guys who are on the Bengal right now, and they're going to be on the Bengal for the next 3 months. Once Squadron is done, most game companies just fire everybody once the game is done, but we're just eager to have them move on to all the other ships we've been working on.
So good to hear. Any new pickups on the ship design? Do we have David Hobbins back at all doing some work?
I heard his name today. He's not on one at the moment. We talked about him for the Dragonfly, I think, and U.S. or L.A. Tech Design did the brief for the Dragonfly, and then the guys in the UK were like, no, we want to do that one too. So they were one of their concept artists.
He got like a dream job, though. Wasn't he working on the Millennium Falcon for Star Wars at some point?
Yeah, he's at Lucas now. I don't know one thing. I think he was on Rogue One for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing now. He worked on the
de-agifying the Millennium Falcon.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And he also worked on the design of the Star Wars land they're building, the theme park stuff. So I envy him.
I envy him too. And having gotten to meet him a couple of times and see his early design work on both the what did I see him doing? He did the Mustang, right?
He did the Mustang.
And he did the original rear end of the the original rework of the rear end of the Constellation, which has been reworked like 3 times since then.
Yes.
Yeah.
He also did the Reliant.
Yeah. Sketched out the Reliant concepts. Other people are doing the actual 3D modeling of it.
Anyway, well, he did a 3D model of the Reliant, and he did the variant models too.
Oh, awesome. So this new line of ships, I know that you can't give us any of the information whatsoever, and there's so much out there. I mean, there are threads of people trying to guess right now and guess pricing and guess where we are. I have an idea because you and I talk a lot, and it's not because you tell me, but it's because it's not hard to figure out where we're going. We have Squadron 42 coming. There have to be some assets that are tied into them that we may be able to see. And on the show, you've even said, we could have 1 or 2. So maybe that's going to be 1. How soon before we start to see sketches? How do you feel about putting out sketches of early design work on ships after Chris has said okay?
We want to kick it off with the locked concept. I think we always will. We tried early on with the Freelancer to show, the sketches and building. It didn't work out so well. So the hope is to have as finished a concept as possible before we sell something. But always I want to go back and show how we got there. So everything goes in the vault.
Okay, so we know that at some point we're going to get more Vanduul ships. We know we're going to get a couple of more UEE ships just because we know how many ships are in Chris's head when it comes to these games because you fly a boatload of ships in with all the wing commanders. Are we also going to see ships from like the Tevarin race or from the more from Xi'An?
Yeah, we've had a concept floating around forever about a Xi'An cargo transport.
Right.
It was supposed to be in some early mission for Squadron 42 that got moved to some other area. So I'd love to revisit that one. That's not one of the ones we have in active development right now.
Okay.
What else do we have?
Any Tevarin type stuff?
Well, we've
Tevarin?
got the we've got the Prowler, of course, which is
yeah.
I think it's actually going to be one of the later concepts we deliver this year, just because they're spending more and more time on the dev for the races, the Tevarin race, which is actually contracted out to Chris Olivia right now.
Awesome. So I guess where we're going forward is that everything right now is going into getting us Squadron 42. Are you still working hard to make that happen before Christmas this year?
I don't ever have a say in that. It's everything I've started. That's our target.
But the case is it's done when it's done, though.
It is done when it's done. I would rather have 1 million people angry at us and deliver a better game, but it's not anything we've discussed right now. And Chris is over there; he's leading the charge. As far as I know, it's all engines on full.
Yeah. Well, I work for a company. Obviously, my company. We have announcements coming out next week, and they won't even tell internal people, right? And the main reason is we never project what we're going to do ahead of time because of what you just said. You don't want to let down the people that are waiting for it, and you want it to be perfect when it comes out, right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole, release date versus finishing the game, the muttering here. And it's a long, it's always a conflict in any project. The great thing about crowdfunding is we have the leeway to make the final decision ourselves, which most development teams never get. And when you look at any other Chris Roberts game ever, they're delayed, they're late, but they're always awesome. And if that's what we're doing here, I'm fine with that.
Okay. I'm fine with it. I mean, the better the game. I'd rather have a game that's fleshed out instead of one that just feels incomplete. I mean, my son loves the Rainbow Six game, but no storyline and a little bit weak in the missions when it first comes out. I think, going back to the AAA title, the way that
you see that everywhere. I mean, look at Battlefront. You know that the design doc for Battlefront must have had an awesome single player campaign, and that's the kind of thing.
Money on it.
You get to a point and they say, okay, well, we're not going to be able to ship that. Cut it. Never tell anybody. We have the luxury of not cutting it, and we have the luxury of telling people, which is great on both accounts.
Cool. All right, I'm going to get to a couple of questions to try to keep in that ship framework for the first couple of questions. I have Eris Lika. I'm sorry if I mangle your name. I am so sorry. Yeah, it's a new name. Now, this question is going to take a little bit more depth to it after you answer this. Will the Freelancer DUR be able to transport a vehicle for planetary exploration?
Yeah, you can fit a Grey Cat in there, right? And hopefully one of the smaller rovers.
It's tough. In the new Freelancer design, it just barely fits in my MIS and my regular Freelancer.
I mean, I assume we'll be going back and designing stuff that does fit in those ships.
Okay. So we now have, this is going back into the exploration line, we now have pretty much a line or a tree of exploration ships, starting with the LX, the Aurora LX, moving into the 315P, Freelancer DUR, and then up from there with the Constellation Aquila and then the Carrack.
Mm-hmm.
How do these ships differ in their missions in exploration, in your mind, since you are the director of ship development?
Uh-huh. Well, that's actually more of a gameplay question, but I can talk to it to some degree. I build the ship. They actually make it work in the game.
Okay.
But we see all sorts of different systems for exploration in Star Citizen. You have something like the Carrack, which is this long-range armored, it specifically finds jump points, and you have other ships that are designed for traversing jump points. You have ships that are designed for having high armor, getting close to the crown of a star, doing science. That sounded really weirdly.
Yeah, it's
science.
Science. Yeah.
No, but I mean the commonality for the exploration ships is always high sensor capability, long range, ability to sustain one or more crewmen for a long distance, and then you'll get into differences like the Carrack has the specific, it's designed to land and deploy the rover. You don't have that on the 315P or smaller ship. So it's kind of you can kind of, if you lay them all out, you can kind of see more and more features as you go. So the 315P has longer range, it has the unique sensor package. The Freelancer DUR has much more cargo. It has the room for equipment, and you just up and up from there.
Okay. Now that you have that seems to be a pretty well fleshed out tree of ships for that particular job function. Mm-hmm. Do we want to call it a job function? Do we want to call it a career in the game? Mm-hmm. Because there's really no leveling up in it. It's if that's what you want to do, you go and you learn how to do it and you do it. What are some of the other trees that you're looking to build out? Like right now we have exploration. We pretty much have a mercantile / transport with the Reliant going all the way up to, I guess the biggest one is the Hull E, mm-hmm. right? How are you going to build out other ones like science ships? Are they going to be smaller science ships, or do they fall into the exploration ship?
No, I know we do want to go back and do smaller science ship, a smaller mining ship, a smaller survey, whatever. It's not surveying, it's prospecting. It's the salvaging. Sorry,
Indiana Jones.
One question I get a lot is, what's the roadmap for finishing Star Citizen? What is the point where you say it's done, it's released? And obviously, one way to look at it, everybody's like, oh, you don't publish on the website. What we do is it's the stretch goals. The stretch goal list is the roadmap. It's all the things we are going to do, and. People are like, oh, but it doesn't have the specific careers. It does, because each career was introduced with a ship at that time. So there's the science one, the mining one. We designed those ships intentionally to introduce the career that we need to do. So you've got mining, mercantilism, prospecting, salvaging. Oh, why do I have the word prospecting stuck in my head?
It's all right.
Transport, bounty hunting, piracy, and so on. There's a dozen or so of those that we need to get right and done before the game is finished. And for each one, ideally we'll have a whole spectrum of ships.
Will the Dragonfly be in the next round of ships, you think?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's good to know, folks. Dragonfly will be one of those ships. All right, so we've got these different career modes in there. So now we know Tony Z, which we can't ask you Tony Z questions because his job is making sure that this PU works for us, this player universe, right? The persistent universe. Is what's going on with Squadron 42 separate from what Tony Z and his crew are doing, or are they being pulled into that area too to design and develop for Squadron 42?
No, they're totally separate. That's another thing I get quite often is the idea of, so Squadron shares a lot of resources in terms of, start this thought again. You can kind of divide game development into implementation and actual development. Squadron involves a lot of shared resources for implementation. Ship artists, character artists, environment artists, they work on both projects and are taken from one to the other. But in terms of actual development, coming up with technologies, how does this work, it's pretty much accomplished with Squadron 42 already. The barrier to entry on that side is a lot lower for a single player campaign. I mean, you guys have watched Arena Commander come together piece by piece by piece, and then Crusader come together piece by piece by piece, and you'll continue to watch that for quite a while. The challenge there is always how do we have more players? How do we have physics grids that take into account multiplayer? That's the huge challenge that has been facing the tech people. Squadron 42 is none of that. It's very classical mission design, narrative scripting. It's about making assets look as good as they can. So you don't see that part of development so much, partially because the guys are in the UK, partially because we keep it behind closed doors. But in that respect anyway, it's a much simpler development process. It's something that's a lot easier to predict.
That makes sense because Squadron 42 isn't going to have the overhead of having to be on this big, large, persistent multiplayer world. No,
you take it and you run.
And that means that it really isn't bogged down by some of the things that are happening with the... I hate saying this because I don't want to be like a complainer, but with the constant crashing in the persistent universe and Arena Commander from it being a large world multiplayer experience, right?
Yeah, I look at a bug list every day and I'll see things like, spawning a constellation causes players 6 through 42 to crash. Not an issue for Squadron.
Right.
So it's a different beast.
And that I asked you that question because people keep on saying they can't even get this done. Squadron 42 is going to... And I really want you to have the opportunity to say, yeah, there are a lot of things that are tied together, like ship development, right? Getting systems working on the ships, being able to pick things up and hold them in your hand. But then there are other things that aren't, like that. There will be multiplayer mission drop-in, but you're talking about connecting 2 or 3 players at that point, right?
Yeah, a lot of that is totally finished already.
Cool.
But I mean, one of the things with Squadron that you'll see is... I lost my chain of thought. What did you just say?
We were talking about how the two don't really have the same bug lists together. Yeah.
And yet I cannot remember what I was going to say, but
it's all right.
It was a very insightful point.
Hey, I'm the one that turns 51 in 3 weeks. You
don't
look. Yeah, well, thanks. You can't be losing your mind when I'm keeping mine. Okay. I'm going to try not to keep you long, but I want to give a couple more questions here. I have a question. This is from Yoko Rose. Yoko asks a question every week, so that's good. A long time ago, Chris said Star Citizen would be allowing mods. Do you know what he means by this? Like, what kind of mods? And because she has friends thinking about how to mod for the universe, what kind of things could we be seeing as mods for the game?
The one constant with mods is that you will never predict the creativity of the people behind them. Certainly early on we thought, people would develop their own ships, they would develop their own, clothing, anything we do. Anything we do in a production process where people do their own clothing, they'll write their own missions, they'll do, toll conversions. Somebody is going to spend the thousands and thousands of man-hours needed to put X-Wings and TIE Fighters in their version of the game. And we want to provide them with the resources to do that. But I expect there will be crazy things we can't even think about right now.
Okay.
And it's not mod-friendly today, so it's you already see things like the folks who did Pirates one. They're already starting to break into the game, even though we're not thinking that yet.
Did I read something recently where Crytek came out with a new CryEngine?
CryEngine just went free for everyone. I don't know the specific license.
It's pay what you want.
It was something like that.
Pay what you want.
And I think Humble Bundle this week, I don't know if this goes up this week or not, but I think Humble Bundle this week is like 10,000 CryEngine objects you can use for playing in the engine. So folks out there who are looking for a job with us, or folks who are looking for their own version of Star Citizen in the future, start looking at that stuff.
Cool. That was one. And I'm going to end with Pappy Boynton's question so we can get you back to work and get this game out for us. No. Or whatever patch you have ready for us this weekend to PTU. I'm hoping, right?
I don't know if
always
we'll
hoping
this week, but
all right.
there's always something.
Ship manufacturers have a certain line within them. Why does the Tally and Sabre have internal bays? And what's the thought process behind the Vanguard not taking on this signature feature of the Aegis Dynamics ships, having that internal bay?
I think it's just the process of linear time. Two of them were finished after the other. Other than the Vanguard does swap its, it has those modules, bucks, whatever we call them, Metabuild upgrade kits, which I think actually kind of led to the thought for the other one. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people keep on asking why does it have missile racks on the outside when you could put them in the nacelles or somewhere else. That's one of those questions that comes up often, and I always just put it aside.
That's totally rule of cool.
Yeah.
But also, it's can be a balancing thing. A missile you shoot off is having that as a decision you make. Do I want this ship that has them externally, or this one that maybe has fewer missiles internally?
Yeah.
It's a balancing point for us.
Yeah, I guess you theoretically, in theory, can carry more externally than internally. I mean, that's how the B-2 and the B-1, well, B-1 bomber does it. 140 tons, I think it is, or something like that. 70 tons of bombs externally, or 20 internal. It's something weird like that. Last question for this week. With the people are really liking the EVA. Did you notice that, the new EVA?
Yeah. I'm glad it's finally working.
People are wondering, and it's not just Pappy Boynton asked us. It was asked by a couple of people, so I'll give it to all you people that asked about this. Does this mean that we're getting closer to like Sadabal and the Star Marine coming out soon?
I would say so.
Don't say it unless you know.
It's a matter of doubling back to implement Star Marine more or less, but
right.
We're getting to the point where the technology is where Chris wanted it for Star Marine. As for when we actually have developers who can go off and do that, it's anybody's guess. Not one I can decide.
So do you have... Okay, all right. Well, I got you, because Chris and everybody, it seemed like Star Marine was on hold, right?
I wouldn't say on hold. I mean, we got to late last year, and we decided, we're going to put resources on to getting something that's symbolic of the finished game, which ended up being Crusader, the mini Persistent Universe.
Thank you.
And that meant taking people off of just FPS, having them work on that, get FPS working in the grand game design, and now it's just a matter of going back and saying, okay, here's the level that works fine for Star Marine. Here's the matchmaking. It's not any sort of challenge, but it's not anything we're super excited about either. I mean, I know everybody wants. There's also people who just want to play Star Marine, and we will deliver it. Star Marine not canceled, but it's less important than getting the Persistent Universe nailed down. It's less important than getting Squadron, which is there's so much FPS material that we have to build for Squadron, and then that's another case where there's going to be all these people who are freed up afterwards who can build levels for Star Marine and can build the interface and all that.
And in theory, the way that you're going to build out the Crusader or the Stanton system by adding more planets and more playable area in that system, it is possible that potentially you're going to have more places to go to partake in the FPS in that system, because right now we only have that one planet, right?
It's not even a possibility. That's a guarantee.
Okay.
There will be plenty more places to fight with the FPS.
Take control of the derelict station, so your org. I can't wait till you start letting us play it. Well, we can now. We could play as orgs with the last lobbies system, so it's pretty good.
It's very basic matchmaking right now.
Yeah.
Get better and better as we go.
Cool. We won't ask any questions about the sliders or anything this week. We'll save it for next week. And Ben, thank you. Something that you saw this week that excites you that you can't tell us about, yes or no?
Yes.
There is? Something that you didn't know about until this week?
Well, I knew about it. No, I got the first great pass at art for, not the ship that's this month, but next month.
First grade pass at what?
It's one of our upcoming concept ships. I can't talk about
now. First at the next wave of ships.
Yeah, so it's a ship you guys will see probably next month. Check my ship list here. Yes,
So how's your shotgun photos of the Polaris coming along?
No Polaris aren't yet.
Damn it. Okay, well, we had to ask that for them. So we're done. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And for all you folks out there, thanks for coming by and listening. Sorry about the GTFO in the beginning. That's only for a few souls. And with that said, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.